What if I told you we're about to witness the most intense start to winter we've seen in nearly a decade? I'm currently tracking what is arguably the best early to mid-December pattern in all my 8 years of forecasting. That's right. For the entire 7 or 8 years I've been doing this right here on YouTube, nothing has looked quite like this. Are you prepared for what's coming? We're talking about brutally cold Arctic blasts, one after another, creating multiple opportunities for significant snowfall. The chaos has already begun. A monster snowstorm is currently burying the Midwest, the Plains, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley as we speak. But that's just the opening act. We're also tracking a developing East Coast system that's only a few days away. And now, the models are hinting at even more action on the horizon. This is an insanely active pattern, so let's dive right in and break it all down for you. Let's start with the current conditions, just to show you the sheer scale of this ongoing, massive snow system. Just look at this map. Can you even count how many states are getting hammered by this thing? As we zoom in, the picture becomes even clearer. We're seeing parts of Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan all in the thick of it. This even includes Ann Arbor, where Ohio State and Michigan are playing at 12. The game is likely over by the time you're watching, but the weather impact is undeniable. It's just incredible to see Indiana, Ohio, and even northern Kentucky feeling the effects of this beast of a storm. But the real jackpot, the main quadrant of heavy accumulating snowfall, is right here in this zone. We're already seeing insanely heavy snowfall piling up. It's a wild situation. Now let's see what's coming next by looking at the model guidance. This is where it gets really interesting. As we pull up the European model, you can see this first system pushing through. I've been saying this in our Discord channel all morning. And by the way, if you want to join that live discussion, the link is in the description and pinned comment below. We would love to have you in there. Now, look at this. This is 7 p.m. on Saturday. If this was a night game, can you imagine the scene? Right there in that little town, Ann Arbor, Michigan, we would be seeing moderate to heavy snow moving in. The field would be completely covered and visibility would be dangerously low. We just missed out on a potentially legendary snow bowl. Although, I do fully expect flakes to be flying throughout that game, which is still going to be so cool to watch. But enough about football. This is a weather channel, a fact I constantly have to remind myself. By tomorrow, Sunday, you can see that low pressure system moves up into Canada, leaving some lingering snow for the Great Lakes region. And right on its heels, we see the beginnings of our next system, with some interior northeastern snowfall starting to break out. It's mostly light to moderate as this next wave rolls through, and by the time we hit Monday the 1st, that system is on its way out. But we get a northern piece of energy diving south, meeting a southern piece of energy from the other jet stream. They are on a collision course, setting up a very interesting and complex situation for the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So let's watch this play out. We're at Monday the 1st. Now pay close attention to what happens as we head into the morning of the 2nd. A blanket of snowfall explodes across the Midwest, then barrels through the Ohio Valley and straight into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This is where it's going to get really intense, so don't miss the next part. This is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, and we are seeing moderate to heavy snowfall for Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and pushing right into northern Jersey. But here is the million-dollar question. New York City is right on the fringe. So is coastal Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Boston. Will they get a winter wonderland or a cold rain? But what about southeastern Massachusetts? That's the battleground, right on the razor's edge between a major snowstorm, a soaking rain, or a miserable icy mix. What happens if this system trends just a little colder? Then you're looking at a big-time crippling snow event for them. But what if it trends even a little bit warmer to the north? Well, that's a completely different story, most likely a rain event. So for these areas, it's a total toss-up, and it's going to come right down to the wire. But here's what we can say for sure. Heavy, crippling snowfall is on the table for southern New England, southern New York,
northern Jersey, and a huge chunk of Pennsylvania. That threat stretches all the way back into Ohio and West Virginia. And as we push later into the day, this storm starts to rapidly intensify. You won't believe how powerful this low becomes. The pressure drops to 985 millibars. And that's happening around 1 a.m. on the 3rd of December. That's early Wednesday morning. Let that sink in. 985. That is a textbook powerhouse nor'easter exploding just offshore. And it's unleashing a fire hose of heavy snow from southern New York across all of southern New England, pushing deep into parts of southern Vermont. It's hammering southern New Hampshire and coastal Maine, where the snow is going to accumulate at an incredible rate. Now, if you want to know the jackpot zone, the one spot that could see the absolute highest snow totals from this entire event, my money is on southern New England and southern New York. That's the bullseye. But all storms must end. As we push forward into late Wednesday morning on the 3rd, this system finally begins to pull away. When it's all said and done, what's left behind is a shot of brutally cold air, which means the lake effect snow machine is about to get cranked up. But don't get comfortable, because look at this. A new player enters the game. A clipper system dives down around Thursday the 4th, right into the northern plains and upper Midwest. This one will bring a swath of light to moderate snow across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and even clip parts of the Northeast by the 5th. And into the 6th. Now, this is where the plot thickens. At the exact same time, look at all this northern energy that's starting to build. It's diving southward, creating what looks like a perfect jetstream pattern, a textbook setup for a major snowstorm across the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. But there's a catch. On this particular model run, the southern stream of moisture is just a little too far south. But keep in mind, we're still looking 6 to 7 days out. So in theory, this pattern could easily shift. You need to circle the 5th, 6th, and 7th on your calendar. That is a time frame we have to watch very closely. I'm definitely watching that window for what could be another explosive situation. You can see on this particular run, the storm doesn't fully get its act together, but you can see the low trying to form is just too far south. And then, believe it or not, another storm system takes aim at the Midwest. The Great Lakes, the Northeast, and the Mid-Atlantic are in its sights around the 7th, 8th, and 9th, just as a fresh blast of Arctic air comes pouring in. And then we get this incredibly interesting setup all over again. An active northern jet stream, but this time it digs even further to the south. The southern jet is just itching to pump moisture into it, and we already have a strong low-pressure system brewing in the Gulf states. And as you can see on the model run for the 9th, we suddenly get a much deeper southern winter storm. Are you ready for this? Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia. They're all in the path of a 998 millibar low off the Carolina coast. This is a true nor'easter, and it wants to track right up the coastline. This could be the perfect opportunity for these areas to get a significant winter storm. But, and this is a big but, this is extremely far out. We're talking about 11 days from now, so please take this with a huge grain of salt. To say this forecast is subject to change would be the understatement of the year. But as we head towards that Wednesday, you can see this thing trying to crawl up the coast. It looks like it could bring the upper southeast and lower mid-Atlantic some very heavy snowfall, but then it fizzles out before it can fully make it up to the northeast. They remain locked in that very, very cold air, and what's crazy is just as that one fades, another one appears on the horizon. Don't miss what we see next. But that's not all. At the exact same time, we have a clipper system on the move, marching through the upper Midwest with a blanket of light to moderate snow. And where is it heading? It's carving a path straight through the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and setting its sights on the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast as well. But just when you think there's a break, another clipper system materializes, targeting the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and the Mid-Atlantic once again. And this one is different. Watch closely as it cuts a path right through to this very spot. The game changer, though, is the jet stream, which is taking a dramatic nosedive,
much farther south by the time this second storm arrives.
But wait, there's more. We have this explosive piece of southern energy that looks primed and ready to detonate up the eastern states. With all that Arctic air locked in, could this put millions on high alert all over again? So let's count them up. Is that 7, 8, or maybe even 9 different opportunities for snow systems barreling through over just the next 15 days? This is an incredibly, unbelievably active pattern. So the big question is, does the GFS model agree? Let's check the data. Of course, it nails our current snow system, and it also picks up on the East Coast storm. But hold on, there's a huge catch. This model shoves the rain-snow line much farther north. You can see New York City is completely out of the snow game. They are squarely in the rain zone, along with Providence and Boston. Philadelphia is even more clearly on the rain side here. This model keeps the heaviest snow locked away in the interior of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This means the models are already in a major disagreement, and the battle is just getting started. Then, the onslaught of Clipper systems just keeps coming, and here's a critical update. Another East Coast threat is emerging around the 6th or 7th. Now that's the exact same time frame I warned you to watch on the European model. And look, we're already seeing snowfall popping up right here within the 10-day range. This isn't some fantasy long-range guess anymore. We have a solid signal with plenty of time to track it. As that storm barrels up into the northeast, it leaves behind a textbook setup where if Arctic air were to pour into the east, you'd have this massive amount of energy to fuel a monster storm. But the GFS model throws a wrench in the plans, showing a weaker northern jet pushing a weaker low-pressure system. At the same time, our southern jet is totally disconnected, spinning up its own weaker storm down here as well. So the GFS model splits the energy, turning one potential blockbuster into 2 duds. But don't get too comfortable, because we get another storm signal for the East Coast and the Ohio Valley area right around the 8th, 9th, and 10th. That's another signal that lines up perfectly with the European model, so pay close attention. After that, a, quote, Great Lakes cutter moves in around the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th, and only then does the GFS model try to usher in a warmer pattern. Now, you might recall from our last few videos that the GFS model has been acting suspiciously. Originally, the GFS model promised us, hey, we're going to get a warmer pattern around the 8th. Then yesterday, it changed its story, pushing that date back to the 10th. And what is it showing now? A warm-up only after the 12th or 13th. It just keeps kicking the can further down the road with every single new update. This is a massive red flag, and it absolutely tanks my confidence in any sort of flip to warmer temperatures anytime soon. Honestly, when you see a model keep delaying a forecast over and over like that, it's a huge tell. It's a classic sign that the model is just grasping at straws. We'll see what really happens, but you absolutely cannot miss the next part. Now, look at the total precipitation on the European model. You would never in a million years believe we're in a La Nina. Why? Because you're seeing this very, very active southern jet stream firing off the East Coast. This is a textbook El Nino pattern. And yet, you have that brutal Arctic air that you typically only see in a weak La Nina or a neutral pattern. Today, I'm going to make an argument that will change how you view this entire setup. Based on every piece of data I've analyzed, and what we now know is barreling towards us, I have to say the conditions we're seeing feel almost deceptively calm, more neutral than the monster La Nina. But is this the calm before the storm? Because make no mistake, we have the entire brutal winter season still ahead of us. In just 2 days, on December 1st, meteorological winter officially begins. That's when the real games start. And while things can change, the pattern is locking in. What we're seeing is a textbook neutral ENSO pattern. Now let's dive back into these anomalies, because the devil is in the details. You've got 2 heavyweight fighters in the ring, an aggressive active Clipper track storming down from Canada, colliding with a supercharged southern jet stream that's fueling powerful nor'easters. And this is where it gets crazy. I have to point out, we've been drawing comparisons all year long
to the unforgettable winters of 2013 to 2014 and 2014 to 2015.
Those are two of our strongest analog years for this winter. And what did they deliver? A nonstop assault of clippers and nor'easters. But here's the dangerous twist. Sometimes those two storms would merge into one superstorm, where a clipper system would escape its track and explode up the East Coast. We call that a Miller B nor'easter. It's a storm that jukes offshore before hooking back with a devastating blow instead of taking the classic coastal route. The comparison is just chilling. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for, let's look at the snowfall totals on the European model. It's painting a massive snow zone for the plains, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley, not just from one storm, but from that relentless train of clippers. It then dumps a ton of snow from the second and third storm systems on the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And just when you think it's over, another storm dives south, extending that crippling snowfall into the southern Mid-Atlantic as well. The pattern is absolutely hyperactive. But hold on, here's the conflict. The GFS model completely disagrees about that southern nor'easter. It does, however, see that same conveyor belt of storms hammering the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. And it still calls for one or two coastal storms for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. The models are arguing, but the message is the same. Get ready. Now, let's talk about the cold. The European model is the undisputed king of cold, and we're currently living through Arctic Blast number 1. Get ready, because Arctic Blast number 2 moves in for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, followed immediately by Arctic Blast number 3. If that wasn't enough, our 4th blast arrives by the 7th. Then the main event, the 5th and most powerful blast, locks in for the 7th, 8th, and 9th. I'm honestly losing count, but it looks like a 5th or even a 6th wave of polar air targets the 13th and 14th. This is exactly what we talked about yesterday. A brutal 1-2 punch of frequent Arctic blast and major snow systems. That combination is absolutely punishing. And I have to repeat, in all my years of forecasting, I have never seen a pattern this ferociously active for the first half of December. I've seen wild late Decembers, and I've seen brutal Januaries. Last year is a perfect example of that. But for early December, it's been a long, long time. So how does the GFS model handle this Arctic invasion? It sees Arctic Blast number 1, number 2 moves in, number 3 hits with intensity, 4 and 5 are less intense, and then number 6 rolls in. But then, look at this. The GFS tries to flip the entire script, showing a potential major warm-up around the 13th, 14th, and 15th. By the way, that's approximately a couple of days further out in the forecast period than the actual date on the model. So you're looking 13 to 14 days out. Is it possible? Confidence isn't sky high in a flip that far away, but it is a signal we cannot ignore. We will be watching this like a hawk. Don't miss the next part, because we'll expose whether this thaw is real or a meteorological mirage. So what does the European model predict from the 4th through the 14th? It's screaming a classic undeniable pattern. A massive warm-up in the west, clashing with frigid air in the east. And it's not even waffling on this. It's a pure through-and-through prediction. According to this model, there's just no escaping this setup from the 4th to the 14th. But is it telling the whole story? Now let's bring in the GFS model for a second opinion. At first glance, it sees the same thing. That intense warmth out west looks almost identical. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. While the GFS does show Arctic air pushing into the east, it's a much weaker punch. It's less potent and not nearly as persistent. So which one is right? And the reason for this disagreement? It's hinting at a slightly stronger southeast ridge. It might seem like a small detail, but it changes everything. Because that tiny ridge means this model is projecting significantly warmer temperatures for the deep southeast. So we have two competing forecasts, a classic model showdown. But here's the crazy part. Even with that conflict, the fundamental premise remains the same on both models. Now, if you want to see which model wins this fight, you absolutely need to subscribe. We track these changes every single day, so ring that bell for daily notifications. It's the only way you won't miss the critical update when this forecast shifts. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, crush that like button. Stick around because in our next video, we're tracking a potential storm system that could completely change this entire forecast. You won't want to miss it.